Hey there. Quick little live stream. Wanted to follow up on my last video in reference to me mentioning that come Monday, having a half a day, that there was going to be a massive sell-off, of which there was. And so just actually finished a little family gathering and looked at one of the articles here on Barron's, and it says Dow dropped 653 points because this is the worst Christmas ever. And so I'm actually looking at some of the mainstream news syndicates, and it looks like Fox News, especially, or Fox Business rather, is doing their best to try to keep confidence out in the public, because they're talking about, is this a great dip, a great buying opportunity? And whenever I see things like that, the first thing tells me is that they're trying to really keep confidence alive, because it's obvious that confidence is being lost. And then even having a family member over and mentioning how he's been paying attention to how much his portfolio has dropped over the last couple of weeks. And it was, kind of nerve wracking, because I don't know what exactly how to break the news. But other than that, the worst is yet to come. And so I was trying to share a little bit of information as to what I believe would be ideal. But once again, it's one of the things where, because we're in a current environment where it's not, things are just going haywires right now. Hence the fact, I had three things I really wanted to try to cover within this little short little stint here. But one, as I mentioned from the last video, was that we had a couple of tweets from the president about firing the Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell. Then the next day, as of yesterday, Steve Mnuchin, Treasury Secretary of our government. So the United States government Treasury Secretary called six CEOs to the biggest banks in our country, and apparently inquired about them being liquid enough to extend loans and things of that nature. And so the first thing I thought about was, why would a Treasury Secretary need to call private institutions? And so that was what we were told, but definitely behind the scenes, I'm sure they had other conversations in reference to what might some of the procedures will be in January, when I believe just first thing came to mind, there being some type of national day or national emergency or something of that nature, when due to the continuous drop in the markets, there might be some type of halt of financial activity in this country. Don't know how, don't know where. But when you see articles like this on Barron's, where it talks about the worst financial Christmas since 1918. So right now, since 1918, this is the worst financial Christmas, or Christmas Eve rather, that we've had in this country. And when you hear stuff like that, that's definitely not good news. And so as of now, 653 points in half a day. So from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., the Dow dropped 653 points. There was no type of injection at the last minute before it closed like it typically is. And so here's my next thoughts, or things I want to kind of throw out there as possible scenarios of what might happen come Wednesday when we have a full day of trading. And so when we have a full day of trading, I can imagine that we will see more of a dip. I would anticipate around 600 or so points. And the question will be, will the PPT, the plunge protection team, as in prior dips of this nature, come in at the last day to prop this thing up? Or is this the way we're going to end the year, where we got a couple days left in the year 2018, and it's going to be in the red all the way through when it comes to the financial markets, as this thing comes to a halt or to an end, give or take. But it's a true sign that the confidence is lost. And so moving ahead, I wanted to basically comment on the idea that I believe the next step would be some type of halt in markets. Not sure how, what, where, when, but I believe that that is something that we should all be prepared for. Just because, at this current rate, I actually did some math. At this current rate, if the markets were to continue to drop on average about 300 to 400 points, like it's been trending over the last couple of weeks, in 55 days, we would be at zero. So basically, the Dow Jones, just speaking in reference to that market there, the Dow Jones would be at zero in a month and a half on the current rate we're on now, unless something is done. So the question will be, what do you guys think might be some last minute tactics to instill confidence? Because, once you have, your commenter referencing that they're paying attention to the markets, that means that they're a little bit on the nervous side. And we got a couple of days left before the new year. And I can imagine some people right now are trying to call their brokers on Wednesday, especially and inquire about what their strategies are for them personally and how can they diversify even more, and not even realize that apart from not even being involved in this current financial train wreck that's underway right now, there's not much you can do in a conventional sense. So we're witnessing the implosion of conventional financial matters, in my opinion. It says Dow down to under 3,000 soon. So Dow down to under 3,000. And that's the thing. Like it as of now, my little calculation on how at about 400 points lost per day, it'll take 55 days for it to go to zero, roughly, just the Dow Jones, because today it dipped below 2,200. And so that's what almost 2,000, almost what 3,000 points lost in the last couple of weeks. So yeah, man, this is all stuff that I think people, unfortunately, are going to feel the side effects of. But other than that, I wanted to comment on that just because over the weekend, I think on Saturday during the last live stream I had, I mentioned about what we should pay attention to on Monday morning, and sure enough, it happened. And so just this is right here in Barron's, it says Dow dropped 653 points, the worst Christmas ever since 1918. So that is, what is that? How many years is that? That's 100 years. So in the last 100 years, this is the worst Christmas Eve period for markets. And so if you are involved in this financial, on that particular avenue in reference to stocks and stuff of that nature, you've just been hit hard today alone. So, but with this won't be on here long. Just about to head out myself, but wanted to just share my thoughts on what will be next. And if you have any thoughts, feel free to chime in the chat, just so people who are catching this late may have a chance to get caught up to speed. Says all anyone needs is to do look any of the info up on YouTube. What we're talking about there. So tell us what your plan is. Plan is just to basically, like me personally, as I was mentioning to a family member earlier, I'm not really involved directly in equities in that capacity there. I learned, well, I got an early lesson rather. And so my early lesson started back when I was a little bit younger, and I was personally invested in Bear Stearns. And so I personally lost everything I had in Bear Stearns. So that was my wake up call to where after I lost everything in Bear Stearns, I began rethinking the whole retirement strategy in general. So I lost my retirement at an early age. So I personally don't necessarily participate in things I don't understand anymore. And that's my biggest thing. If I don't understand it, and if I can't control it directly or have my hands in on something, I personally don't want to gamble in that capacity. So that's just me. It says banksters must be erased. Yeah. So right now, I think also more news about President Trump referencing that the Fed is a problem. He's basically saying that the Fed is a problem. When the president of the United States mentioned that the Federal Reserve is the problem, that's never been done before. So that spells trouble for Wednesday, because not only do we have a drop, we got Mnuchin talk calling CEOs asking if they're liquid or not. And so the question will be, liquid for what? Consumer lending. Why is that so important now in the midst of all this Fed talk, interest rate hike at the end of the year? So people, believe me, there's more going on right now than we can imagine. We're just getting the cover story. So the cover story of the Dow dropping 653 points, that's just what we see on the surface. But yet imagine all that long and strong money that's leaving. And then right now, of course, also the alternative out of this old archaic market in a digital form is cryptocurrency. So we see that it's been in the green last couple of days. There's been a little bit of a recovery there as far as the last past highs over the last couple of months. But I'm still anticipating some type of a dip in cryptocurrencies, just because the powers that be, I'm sure, don't want it to appear that there's some type of escape out of these markets as they're crumbling. And so if somebody tried to call in, once again, with these little quick streams, not going to do any calls. I don't know how that'll work. And then if there's any questions or any thoughts right there, please feel free to let me know. Everyone, please try a beautiful Christmas day. Try to have a beautiful Christmas day. Yeah. And so that's the biggest thing is tomorrow's Christmas, and, life still goes on, but yet in a financial sense and thereafter, I'm sure it's going to be very uneasy for a lot of people. And the people who I'm sure who are the most uneasy are those that are heavily invested and devoted their whole life into doing what they were taught and told that was practical, sound financial advice. And I'm imagining that those are the people who are probably going to have more of an uneasy type of Christmas. And so once again, I think ultimately remember the reason for the season, and it's the idea that Christ was born, and so amongst that, we are in good hands if you are a member of the body of Christ. It said Byron said, I bet it would drop to 800 on Wednesday. Drop 800 on Wednesday. I wouldn't doubt it. I wouldn't doubt an 800-point drop. And so the main question will be, if it drops significantly on Wednesday, what about Thursday and Friday? And so that means that if it continues to drop, there's no last minute push to get those drops up higher for some type of recovery. Imagine every day it drops, every day it's in the red. Imagine the amount of confidence and uneasiness people are experiencing in their gut when they just feel the idea that perhaps this thing is not going to rise back up. It says the phoenix is rising from the ashes of fiat currencies. This is the plan, 1988 Economist magazine. Yeah, and it seems like it's right on time. And of course, I think I commented on that in the past, but I think the whole phoenix burning of fiat currencies is not necessarily any particular coin. I think it's the technology. And the technology is the digital currency crypto age because most of the hype right now behind the scenes from what we know for those that follow cryptocurrencies is just the blockchain. So I think the blockchain has been positioned as that coin around that Phoenix neck that was came out with 30 years ago. It says you can heat your house with cash. Yeah, but you're not going. Yeah, you gotta have a lot of paper to do that, but yet the paper gonna burn very fast, I'd imagine. It says what can possibly make people return now to the markets? Charles, good question. I'm not sure. Definitely, that's the thing. Like because the drops have been consistent over the last couple of weeks, confidence has already been eroding at a very fast pace to where you have mainstream channels like Fox Business. So if you go to Fox Business YouTube channel, there's 4 or 5 videos in a row that are kind of designed to give a reason why the markets are dropping, and then Fox businesses they're being told it looks like to somehow try to instill confidence back into the markets. And so it talks about this is a great buying opportunity, but yet I don't hear them say that about the crypto sector. And also on Fox Business, there's an article, and this is where I know something's really wrong. There's an article titled Wall Street runs from Bitcoin or something like that, amongst all that stock market stuff. So we have evidence that the Dow and NASDAQ and S&P, all those are in the red. And then right now, as of today, cryptocurrencies are in the green, but they say Wall Street is like running from Bitcoin, which lets me know that's the complete opposite. Wall Street right now is running towards Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. So, so you read into that further yourself. It says, how do you feel about credit spreads? Brolistic, credit spreads, I'm not too well versed in that. Shine some light on that for me in the chat, and I'll share my thoughts on it. But once again, my primary focus has always been the very name of this channel, Rethinking the Dollar. And so everything right now is to be expected because this is all the early trembles of a major financial quake or whatever that's coming, which will ultimately end in the demise of national currency. So anything between the unraveling of our old monetary system, transitioning to the injection of liquidity that has to come pretty soon. We're going to need some funny money from somewhere pretty soon, injected to these markets to instill confidence, to get back in the green, to keep the public at ease. Because mind you, most of the people who are heavily invested in the market are those that have no true know-how or understanding of how financial matters work in general. Those are the people who's are more likely just having their accounts credited, financial portfolios credited directly from their paychecks, and they are told that 10, 20, 30 years from now they'll be able to withdraw some, but they most likely don't know what they're invested in. Those are the people who need the most confidence at this current time, because those that are unaware and those that are actually financial savvy and stock market savvy, I'm sure they're the ones, they're shorting this right now, making a killing right now. I mean, if you know what you're doing, of course, I'm not a trader, so I don't know the ins and outs of shorting the market, but a lot of people are shorting these drops and making money on the way down. So yeah, it says put options profit when the market goes down, call option profits when the market goes up. Right. So that a lot of people in the know are doing that now. So there's a way to win in the midst of this thing dropping, or you can just not participate in general and just sit on the sideline and be diversified in other things that you have confidence in or that you know or have a little bit more say so over yourself. It says, question, how much longer until hyperinflation? Fed will pump more dollars. Ah, man, good question. How much longer before hyperinflation? I believe we have a long way to go before hyperinflation just because we're experiencing in 2019, we'll start off with stagflation, where we're going to experience deflation in certain areas, but inflation in others, and that's going to go on for a while. And so I would imagine not until there's an actual some type of policies implemented to help these down markets that it will eventually see some type of inflation out in Main Street, and then that's when things will really go haywire because prices will rise and then we'll move out of stagflation into inflation flat out. And then down the line at the very last minute, I believe there might be some type of small resemblance of a hyperinflation before something is inputted to keep it from going completely ballistic. And so I don't hit. So it just first thought is Trump is questioning the Fed, Mnuchin is questioning the banks. That lets me know that that all that right there has a lot to do with our currency and confidence. So depending on what President Trump does in the first week or two of the new year, if things continue to drop like they are, he's going to step in, as I mentioned on the last stream, with some type of emergency measure that will either allow him to take immediate control of our financial matters, or somehow try to put it back in the hands of the Treasury solely, and suspend Federal Reserve activity. I have no clue as to how that would work or how that would look, but I would imagine that he does not want this thing to drop on his watch in the way which is looking like it's going to happen. So I can see some type of Trump intervention, which would then ultimately lead to some currency issues. So this is a great time to have some type of backup plan in reference to some type of parallel currency, perhaps, to go along with the Federal Reserve note, as he's playing the blame at the Fed. So I don't know. Said, what's the last president to question the Fed like this? Kennedy. Hebrew. Yeah, and that didn't end too well. So once again, with the Dow dropping again, I just wanted to leave you guys with some thoughts of mine on what came to mind when I saw 653 points in a half a day. And so if we have a full day's trading and there's no end of the day rally, anticipate more of that until the end of the week, and then possibly some type of halt of all financial activities, hence some type of emergency measure implemented by the president. And then after that, we'll all find out what that means and what that'll look like. So, but my next guess, if I was to guess what's coming next, some type of intervention from the Treasury or from the Fed in the midst of these down days, through declaring some type of emergency day, holiday, or something of that nature, and then the introduction of some type of alternative that would lessen our dependency upon the Fed hiking interest rates before they, basically hike rates more and cause more of a recessionary type of event. Because we are, with all the trembles happening right now, we're clearly in a recession, but it'll take another couple months before it's fully acknowledged by the whatever team that is that does that. And then also, as I was mentioning earlier, typically when things get this bad, these are great times for some type of intervention, and unfortunately, it could be some type of war event. So these are all things that come across my mind as I watch what's happening all around us. It says, Mike, I don't think the Fed is going to intervene. Yeah, I don't think, the Fed, I'm not talking about the Fed intervening. I'm talking about, Mnuchin, the Treasury, the president, definitely not, political, the Congress or the Senate. They're not going to intervene just because, especially the Senate, because they stand to take power in the beginning of the new year. So I think they won't mind seeing the markets continue to drop so they can then pinpoint it at Trump so they can have more of a reason to try to do something in regards to some type of impeachment measure or whatever they're going to try to do. It says JPM silver may belong to the U.S. government. If that is the case, that would be great, and we will see. But I anticipate some type of intervention from Trump or the Treasury if things continue to go the way they're going, because the Fed is a problem. And also the fact that I mentioned earlier that Trump is out here saying that the Fed, the central bank, the central bank, the central bank, pointing the finger already as to what's happening. And so one thing he's not really telling us also is that the government has become dependent upon the Federal Reserve, and hence the idea of this whole deficit spending. So the central banking model has become a crutch for our government. Since we can't come up with a budget, we've been running a deficit for the last decade plus. The central bank has become the government's best friend. So you can't solely blame it on them, because we can't balance a book or stay within our own means financially. So they're just doing what they're supposed to do, monetize our debt, and hence we are living off of it and all those entitlements. And we're in a government shutdown right now. So the Dow dropped, we're in a government shutdown, Mnuchin calling banks, Trump blaming the Fed. That's 5 things right there that spells problems before this year is over with. It says President Trump knows this is a house of cards and is wobbling bad. It says intervention that will be a reset. Reset. I wouldn't say a reset, because as of now, in order to reset, I would imagine you got to have multiple parties all included in that. And as of right now, a reset in that capacity will be a complete global situation, where in the past, I always talk about how China and Russia is waiting on some type of event to flick the switch to basically unleash to the world the true price of gold outside of the COMEX and the LBMA, whatever, the London UK price mechanism. And so that will be considered a reset. I'm just talking about our problems within this country. And so unless we have more participants involved in this, I don't see it being a full reset. I see it being a halt in the current implosion of our financial markets, which will then be a reason for other countries to see, hey, these guys are having issues in their own country. We know we're not going to get paid back on all this debt they owe us. Now might be the time to flick on our light switch to this new world order that won't be led by the United States of America, in reference to, bringing back trying to find a true price discovery for metals. And so, yeah, I don't think a reset just yet. It's still kind of early. It says withdrawal from the 1994 missile treaty formed by Reagan and Gorbachev. Oh, man. It says reset can't happen that fast. You're right. It takes a global action. It says you think silver will take off this year. This year, with meaning for 5 days or so left in 2018? No. But to me, at this current price, it really tells me how important alternative vehicles are in relation to things that are solely derivatives or spinoff on what used to be considered safe havens or assets like government bonds. People are realizing that, it's not a good idea to lend your money to the government, knowing that they can't really get their own house in order, nevertheless, really pay you back. So I think silver will definitely be of importance, as always, just because it's the cheapest financial instrument on the face of the earth right now. And it's the people's money. So I think the people will get back to their money as far as being able to get their hands on something physical and tangible. It says banksters must be erased. I don't think they're going to be erased. I think they'll just reposition themselves in a new capacity. But if Trump continues to blame the central bank, that'll be more of a reason for more governments around the world and central bank and the public, for other nations to also begin the same narrative of blaming central banking. And so just to really highlight the reason that we're in this mess right now is because of a centrally controlled institution that has positioned themselves as the beginning and end of a nation's currency. The central banking model was never meant to, be in the best interest of a government, nevertheless the people. Hence what happened with our prior 2 central banks that was that ended, 100 plus years ago. The last one being the bank slayer himself, Andrew Jackson. And so since then, we've obviously gotten away from that model, and our entire economy has been based upon the banking sector. And what has happened? The banking sector has taken over the global economy in all facets, and then spun off all types of paper, digital products, derivatives, mortgage-backed securities, CDOs, and Oh man, they got all types of products and they label them as investments, but we're witnessing that they're promises that won't be lived up to. Says Mike, tell everyone how important having an asset without counterparty risk very it is. So, Leocean, if you go back to the little video channel for those that might be new, Exeter Pyramid. John Exeter, former central bank, former Federal Reserve Board of Governor, created a actual pyramid, an inverted pyramid that lists the risk factors in the current monetary system. And at the very bottom is metals, and at the very top is derivatives, and everything in between are instruments that have been spun off by the banking sector as products to invest in. That pretty much keeps all the money and currency they create in the system, and that itself is has become our entire financial markets. Everything is a spinoff or a product of some nature from some company, and we work, live, and pump our lives into it, anticipating some type of payout down the line. And we're witnessing right now the idea that there's a lot of risk in actually investing in things that A, that you don't understand, and B, that you can't get access to if you want it ASAP. Like right now, with the market is dropping, not for those that are aware, they're sure they're shorten the market, but those that have no clue of what that is, they maybe want to get out. But how easy is it to get out? How easy is it to get out, especially like today when the market's only open half a day and you saw it drop 653 points? So everything outside of your physical possession, in my opinion, has extreme risk, and so that's kind of how that goes. It says 2,000 ounce gold. Yeah, gold. If they were to give account, if metals was to give actual account of all the paper currencies that are so-called claims on those metals, it'd be well beyond 2,000. Says since debtors are slaves, do we have the most slaves in history in our times? Ooh, I would probably say yes, because our monetary system is based upon debt. Everyone has debt in their possession, and the bad part is they were able to spin off debt as instruments to invest in, like a government bond is our nation's debt. But yet, for the last umpteen years in this country, it's been considered a safe haven asset that you go to. But just the idea that debt packaged up in a bond or treasury note or whatever is considered an asset lets me know that they did a good job of convincing us where they wanted us to go, which was into their products. So that most people are modern day slaves to debt. Yeah, man. Brando, Merry Christmas. Is confiscation of metals to the government something to worry about? I don't think so, just because who knows truly what you're sitting on? Who knows what type of weight you actually have in your possession? And so I don't think that it will be possible to actually get a hold of everyone's metals. You can probably get something in on the surface. Hence, if it was in a bank vault in a deposit box, then sure, consider that gone. But if it's in your physical possession, hidden somewhere, stored somewhere, you should be good to go, relatively speaking. It says, I've melt my silver into bullets and give it back to them that way. So what are we holding out for a $20 Litecoin? Ryan James, $20 Litecoin, as I mentioned earlier, and I still, for whatever reason, just got a hunch that the crypto market's rallying now, but if we have more dips in the old financial market, they won't let that stay green for long. So what better way to have one last hoorah other than to slam the crypto market as best as they can, if they can, which could take Litecoin below $20. So I would like to see $9, maybe $8 Litecoin. That'll be right up my alley. Says you think war is coming? War definitely is always on the table, especially over our allies rather in Ukraine, as this whole Crimea Russia situation continues to get more news and more mainstream attention. It says Rothschild just tweeted Trump to shut Mike Hammer. Really, I didn't know. So really, like somebody with the last name that you're referring to mentioned that in a tweet. I gotta check that out. It says first rule of economics: investing. Never invest money you can't afford to lose. If you're sweating this mistake you made was when you thought the stock market was for you. Yeah, Walter, man, that's a good point. But think about it. all our lives we've been told what we've been positioned to think that if you can trust a person who has a certification as a financial advisor to do the best on your behalf. So there's never been as much risk or a potential threat of complete loss of capital like it is now, to my knowledge, where we're seeing things like this, where it says the Dow drops 653 points and it's the worst Christmas ever. This is the first time this has happened on a Christmas Eve in 100 years. And so we all know what has happened in between, but we've never seen something where the five things I mentioned, Trump tweeting about the Fed, Mnuchin calling banks, government shutdown, Dow continue, markets continue to drop, and for the first time, there appears to be some type of avenue out of old archaic financial products in the form of some type of digital currency. So all that is not leading to uh, a good foundation for most people, because most people are been told to buy and hold. If you've been, we all have had corrections before. Come tomorrow, and even more so tonight, we're going to see more mainstream channels talking about this is a great time to buy into the dips, the dips, the dips. But how, so should you hold out a little bit on this, Dow dip and buy anything lower? Like, yeah, so I think more people are starting to become uneasy with that old advice, because as I was telling a family member earlier, I believe that this next dip will turn into a crash, and then there's not going to be your everyday recovery like it has been over the last couple of recessions that we've had. And so I was actually, had a family over earlier, and I actually played my last interview on the TV with Michael Pinto, just to let him know that this ain't, this is not just me talking. I had a chance to speak to a lot of people in the sector who all feel the same way, that we're in for a hell of a storm. And so I, hope and think, they left a little bit more aware of what's going on. But once again, it's usually not until things hit the fan that people actually make the tough decisions. Right now is a tough decision for a lot of people because it goes against the grain. We've been told to buy the dips, buy and hold and all those type of things. But I would imagine that, we shouldn't anticipate that working for much longer. It says, why are banks stopping you from buying cryptos with a credit card? Fred, that happened in January of this year because people were buying on the upward trend and selling because that was when the market was rallying, and people were using their credit cards to buy in and then paying them off. And that's not why you have a credit card. The goal is to keep you trapped in a credit card so you can accumulate a balance. They can make interest off you maintaining the balance. So that's why they stopped that. It says, guys, money. It says, hold out until the fourth quarter reports come out. Yeah, but I'm not anticipating no type of good news whatsoever because of all the things that are starting to collide right now. It's just a true sign of where we're heading when you have a president pointing the blame at the primary source of our problems, which is central banking, but then not telling the people the truth that our government has depended upon a central bank to make this what's been considered the greatest, most prosperous nation on the planet is because of credit. So that's what we're experiencing is coming to an end. But as always, I just want to get on here real quick to share with you my thoughts on what I anticipate in the next couple of days for those that have interest. The idea that if we have a couple more dips, expect some type of intervention and then some type of policy implemented or executive order or something that will come into play that will be implemented or given to the people to instill confidence so people come Wednesday, and especially the new year, don't start off trying to get out of the markets and it causes more of a panic, because it looks like there may not be anyone on the back end trying to prop this market up and keep it going. So other than that, hope all's well. So yeah, more Kiwi is coming. So just want to log in real quick and give you guys something to look at if you have not. Just go to Barron's. It talks about the drop 653 points on a half a day's trading. So just my thoughts, man. But definitely give this video a thumbs up, share it if you have found it informative. And if you're catching this late, leave a comment down below. Let me know what your projections or your thoughts might be on what happened on Wednesday, and especially what happens on January 1st or January 2nd, I believe is that Monday of the new year. So other than that, be safe, be blessed. Just wanted to get on for a quick minute. Peace. See you guys later.